Hello and welcome back to the Movie Memo Recaps. Today we are going to recap a 2024 movie titled Lights Out. Please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead. In the opening scene, we are introduced to Duffy, who wants to go into a bar. Inside, he sees some tough guys playing poker and decides to join them. Despite not having any money, Duffy uses his watch to participate in the game. After a few games, he beats them, which makes the thug's leader mad, and a fight breaks out. At that moment, a man named Max, who had recently been released from prison, witnesses Duffy easily defeating them. Later, due to his lack of a permanent home and frequent moves, Duffy stays at a nearby motel. It turns out he used to be a Special Forces Marine, a major, and 7 years ago, he lost many friends in Afghanistan. Only 2 people survived. They are Duffy and his friend Don. The next morning, Max approached Duffy, whom he saw fighting in the bar. At first, Duffy was unsure about talking to him, but Max insisted he had something valuable to share and even offered to buy him breakfast. Curious, Duffy agreed to join Max for breakfast. There, Max explained that he saw Duffy beat up the thugs and recognized his martial arts skills. He suggested they could team up to make money from Duffy's fighting talent. At first, Duffy didn't trust him, but Max promised he was being honest, and he was willing to prove it to Duffy. Soon after, Max brought Duffy to a location where a man named Donald was organizing a street fight. Donald was in charge of matching up fighters. Following the first fight, Donald boldly challenged anyone to take on his champion, a large man. Donald then encouraged Duffy to fight, knowing that Max had brought him there for a match, but Duffy declined in the first place. When Duffy tried to leave, everyone started teasing him, calling him a coward. Finally, he accepted the challenge, and they fought. In just a few seconds, Duffy defeated the big guy who was Donald's champion. After Max received some money from Donald, they quickly separated due to the sound of police sirens. On their way, Max asked Duffy if he had a place to stay, but Duffy said no. So, Max decided to let Duffy stay at his sister's house. At that time, Max also shared some of the money he got with Duffy. Soon after, they reached Max's sister's house, but when they got there, Max's sister, Rachel, was kicking out her boyfriend for misbehaving. Then, Duffy ended up getting into a fight with Rachel's boyfriend. It turns out Rachel is a widow with 1 child. The next day, Max met a big boss from the Mafia called Parker. Turns out, Max owed Parker a lot of money, and he went to meet him to pay it back. Then, Parker told Max that if he didn't pay back his debt within a week, the amount he owed would keep growing. After hearing this, Max decided to settle his debt by fighting in the ring, as he had found a new fighter. Parker was thrilled about this development, as he now had 2 formidable fighters who had never lost before. Duffy was busy cleaning Rachel's house in the meantime. Soon after, Rachel and her daughter came back and were impressed with Duffy's excellent manners. They thanked him for cleaning the house. That evening, when Duffy, Rachel, and her daughter finished dinner, Max returned home looking pleased because Duffy seemed to be fitting in well at Rachel's house. Afterward, Max asked Rachel and her daughter to step away for a moment so he could talk privately with Duffy. There, Max admitted to Duffy that he owed a lot of money to a Mafia boss, and it couldn't be paid off gradually. Therefore, Max requested that Duffy engage in a new fight to pay off the debt and earn some money. Feeling sorry for him, Duffy agreed to help. The scene shifts to Parker questioning a man named Stan. So, Stan was Rachel's boyfriend, whom she kicked out of her house, and Duffy hit. It turned out Stan was one of Parker's henchmen who had stolen all the money from their group. At the same time, a corrupt police chief named Lynx arrives. Lynx starts questioning Stan about the stolen money. Stan conceals all the stolen money in his girlfriend's house. Upon discovering this, Lynx doesn't hesitate to kill Stan. Then, Lynx asks Parker to find out who Stan's girlfriend really is. The next night, Max and Duffy go to the fighting area to compete. At that time, a women's fight is happening when they arrive, and Lynx watches it. After the first match ends, it's Duffy's turn to fight against Parker's men. Donald, the match leader, warns them that Duffy is not someone to underestimate. Soon after, the fight starts, and within seconds, Duffy easily defeats his opponent. Later, as Duffy and Max were getting ready to leave, Parker stopped them. He wanted Duffy to compete again, this time against his right-hand man, Ford. However, Max, aware of Ford's toughness, declined, citing the debt they had already paid off. But Parker offered to triple the payment if Duffy could beat Ford. Hearing that, Duffy agreed to compete again, but only if Parker would pay 5 times the amount if he won. Parker agreed without hesitation. Soon after, Duffy and Ford engaged in a match. Initially, Duffy grappled with Ford, a formidable opponent. But then Duffy remembered his past experiences in Afghanistan and became more aggressive. In the end, he won the fight, nearly killing Ford. Back at home, Duffy and Max were overjoyed because they now had a lot of money. Max thanked God for bringing Duffy into his life. Without Duffy, Max knew he would have remained in debt and probably faced Parker's death. The next day, Parker contacted Lynx to inform her that he had found out where Stan's girlfriend lived. Soon after, Lynx and her team went to Rachel's house, pretending to be searching for Stan. Then, Rachel told them that she and Stan had been apart for a long time, and she didn't know where he was. However, the corrupt police insisted on searching Rachel's house, claiming they were looking for the money Stan stole. After searching the house, they didn't find the money. Lynx then warned Rachel that she had 1 week to find the money, or else she and her daughter would face trouble. Max and Duffy returned home later that evening, only to discover that corrupt police had raided Rachel's house earlier that day. Rachel clarified that they were looking for money Stan had hidden, but she was unaware of it. Max realized that these corrupt cops were surely the ones working with Parker. Then he instructed Rachel and her daughter to stay inside while he and Duffy headed straight to Parker's headquarters. Soon after, Max and Duffy confronted Parker because they had been harassing Max's sister. However, Parker denied involvement, claiming it was the work of a larger group beyond his control. He admitted he didn't dare to oppose them. Then, Parker explained that Stan had confessed to hiding the stolen money at Rachel's house. If the corrupt police don't return the money, they will kill Rachel and her daughter. At that time, Parker suggested that Max take responsibility for the debt. Feeling pressured, Max and Duffy decided to leave. But outside, they unexpectedly bumped into Lynx and her deputy. In the car, Max felt overwhelmed, unsure of how to repay Stan's debt. He knew that if he didn't, Rachel and her daughter would suffer. There, Duffy reassured Max, saying he was willing to fight again to save Rachel and her daughter. A few hours later, Duffy was standing in front of Rachel's house, lost in thought. Soon after, Rachel approached him and asked why he hardly ever slept. Duffy explained that when he closed his eyes, he remembered his comrades from the military, most of whom had died. Only he and one person named Don remained. Meanwhile, Max was meeting with Donald to arrange a big fight for Duffy, hoping to earn a lot of money. At that time, Max intended to use the money to settle Stan's debt, ensuring Rachel would no longer face harassment from corrupt police. Hearing that, Donald agreed to help, as long as he got a 30% cut. The next morning, Donald went to inform him about Max's request for a big fight. Donald also attempted to convince Parker, framing it as an opportunity to exact revenge for the previous defeat. At that moment, Parker agreed, and they proceeded to plan a large-scale fight for that evening. Long story short, it was nighttime, and Max brought Duffy to the fight venue. Rich people were there to bet on their champions. Parker and Lynx were the masterminds behind the fight, sure that Duffy would lose this time. Lynx even said that if their champion lost to Duffy, Parker would have to cover the losses. However, Parker refused, saying he had evidence of Lynx's crimes. If this evidence got out, Lynx and her team would be in big trouble. Meanwhile, Rachel was taking out the trash when she noticed a hole near the bin. Inside was a bag of money hidden. At that moment, Rachel discovered that her daughter had hidden the money because she had grown tired of Stan's rude behavior towards her mother. Then she apologized for it. Returning to Duffy, Donald informed him that his opponent was an experienced police officer. Donald had bet $5 million on Duffy, so he urged him to win. The fight started, and Duffy easily defeated the police officer. They later discovered that the officer had already lost a previous fight. Chaos ensued, and Duffy and Donald decided to run away. On the way, Max called Rachel, telling her to leave the city quickly with her daughter. Rachel reported that she had found the money they were searching for, but Max urged them to depart immediately. Soon after, Max and Duffy rushed home and told Rachel and her daughter to get in the car. But they were suddenly attacked by corrupt police. Suddenly, Rachel's daughter got shot, and Max called an ambulance. After the ambulance took Rachel and her daughter to the hospital, Duffy said they needed to solve the problem. Then he suggested they go meet his friend. Just as Donald was about to escape with the betting money, someone shot him. Lynx sent a representative specifically to seize the money. Conversely, Max and Duffy encountered Don, a former military comrade of Duffy's. There, Duffy explained that he needed weapons because they were planning to fight back against the corrupt police that night. Don assured them he had the weapons they needed in his car. He also reminded Max that Duffy had saved his life on the battlefield before. Don then took them to his car, which was filled with weapons. He offered to join them, but Duffy hesitated because he didn't want to put him in danger. However, Don insisted, mentioning the debt he owed Duffy. Soon after, Duffy, Max, and Dawn went to Parker's headquarters to confront the corrupt police. Parker warned them to stay alert because corrupt police were targeting him. Suddenly, the corrupt police surrounded the place, and a battle erupted. Dawn, Max, and Duffy defeated Lynx's men. At one point, Parker managed to corner Lynx, and she killed him without hesitation. Then, Lynx cornered Max and asked Duffy to surrender, threatening to kill Max. Upon hearing that, Duffy surrendered to Lynx, but Max managed to shoot her without anyone noticing. After the chaos settled, Duffy realized that Dawn was dying. He tried to comfort him, but Dawn passed away. The next day, Max visited the hospital. At that time, Rachel's daughter was awake and allowed to go home. Back home, Rachel read a letter from Duffy. In the letter, he thanked her for letting him stay at her house. He also mentioned about the money she found in the trash, advising Rachel to use it prudently. After everything was settled, Duffy promised to return to Rachel's house and marry her. Thanks for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more of these recap. Until next time, have a nice day.